And now we will go on with our panel discussion. I am pleased to present Rona van der Zanden, who will set the scene. She is a successful young woman who founded startups and is not only an entrepreneur, but also a moderator, a teacher, and TED speaker as well. Her specialty, just guess what? It's a future of work and education. And here she is. Here's Rona van der Zanden.
Let's go on a journey into the future. Imagine it's the year 2035. Our world is even more globalized than today, and all global powers have committed to tackle climate change. The days of the ego state are over. Our world is highly connected and highly digitized. This is Farida. She's a software developer from Togo. Farida never had the chance to proper formal education, what we used to call it back in 2020, but Farida had access to online e-courses, to digital communities, and she learned about new technologies, about coding, and she eventually founded a very successful startup that grew, became a global player, and Farida is now handled as the new Steve Jobs. Everyone in Farida's company has a growth mindset, is innovative, and learning is not only part of their job, it's also their passion. Let's get back to 2020. Where are we today? We already live in the so-called VUCA world. It's volatile, it's full of uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So everything around us is constantly and rapidly changing. Our future is remote first. Digital will be the norm. Physical exchange will only happen when it's really necessary. And we already experienced this here today in this global hackathon with people joining from all over the world. In our reality, the innovation spans are getting shorter and shorter. New technologies are implemented sooner and sooner. Just think of the clumsy phones we had 10 years ago and the incredible devices that we have today. Also, new technologies like AI will have a fundamental impact on basically every life and every job. With all of this, the innovation spans and the half-time of knowledge are getting shorter and shorter. So whatever skill you possess today, it is being made obsolete faster and faster. If you start a bachelor's degree today, by the time you graduate, half of what you learned at the beginning is sort of already outdated. So with all this, with this crazy VUCA world we are in, learn to work is over. It doesn't exist anymore. Our future is learn, work, learn, work, learn, learn, work. Lifelong learning is not a buzzword anymore. It's already here. It's our reality. And it's certainly our future. Because in a future where everyone has to change jobs and professions several times in their lifetime, the self-motivation to be a lifelong learner is paramount. So this is our reality. This is where we're already in. Where are we with our education systems? We are still stuck in a frontal teaching setting, delivering knowledge, exam pressure, killing the motivation to become a lifelong learner and keep the curiosity to discover new things. I guess this picture is familiar to many of you, and it's not old. This is what most universities and schools looked like before the COVID crisis. In the last few months, we have taken this setting online, and then it looked like this. But not much has changed here. It's still the old way of thinking and teaching, delivering knowledge. In German, this is called Vorlesung, lecture. It literally means to read something out to someone. And it stems from a time when reading was a privilege. A brought you another nice German word. Abschluss. Abschluss is graduation, and it means end. Finally, an end to all this learning. So many of my students, they're so happy when they finally get their Abschluss, when they're finally done with all this. But there is no more Schluss, there is no more end to learning in a lifelong learning setting. So what do we need? What skills, what settings to be successful in this crazy VUCA world? We know that in the future, soft skills will be the new hard skills. While we still need some hard skills, some knowledge, of course, of some things, some technical knowledge, soft skills are becoming more and more important. And I would really like to call these soft skills differently. I would like to call them KUFU skills. Ku, because they're already current and super important today, and Fu, because they're certainly important for the future. Because in a future that's full of constant and radical reskilling, we need self-motivation, curiosity, communication skills, flexibility, the openness to constantly adapt and learn. Now, we know this, but in our current education system, we are not only not training these skills, we're even actively detraining them. We know that we need this in the future, but we're still trying to squeeze competencies in limited curricula, and that's pretty absurd. I told you about the black tiles earlier, that I think they were really the horror for many of us this year. But despite the black tiles, this spring, I was also very hopeful. In March, when the corona crisis hit here in Germany and we went into the first lockdown, corona also pushed us all of a sudden into the digital era. And in March, my phone was ringing non-stop. I had so many universities calling me and saying, "Rona, you're so digital, can you help us to move into the digital space?" And all of a sudden, everything was possible. We developed new ideas, new content, new modules, and everything was so solution-oriented. But just a few months later, not so much of that was left. I don't know how many times I heard this summer, "We plan in presence this winter. Only one go, back to the old world, back to the old setting." In April 2020, Peter André Alt, who's the president of the German Rectors Conference, called for the summer semester to be postponed. In June 2020, we had more than 2,000 lecturers signing a letter warning against the forced digitalization of universities, and they called for the defense of face-to-face teaching. You can still read their letter online. It now has more than 6,000 signatories. When it comes to digital education, especially here in Germany, but also in other European countries, we see that we are still lacking a lot. Infrastructure, equipment, skills, knowledge, content, but also the mindset. I had a conversation the other day with a professor, and she said to me, "Rona, I've been here since 15 years, and nothing has changed. Talk to me again in 15 years. And I'm sure nothing has changed still." And I see this a lot, that this whole digital stuff is only an exception. As soon as Corona is over, we want to go back to where we were before. I told you about Farida in the beginning, and that she didn't have access to formal education, but that she had the right KUFU skills to be successful. If we don't finally manage to transform higher education and our education system as a whole into the places where people are prepared for the digital world and the complexity of constant and radical transformation, 2035 is looking pretty grim for us. Now, I think that if we know that the future is full of radical reskilling. We really need to rethink our higher education systems for them to still be relevant in 15 years from now. I think college is basically for fun and to prove that you can do your chores, but it's not for learning. Do you guys out there agree with this statement? Well, I guess we always learn something, so we also learn something at university. But if in the future you can learn anywhere, at any place, and certificates don't matter anymore to employers, what should universities be? What should they offer? What should they stand for? Should they prepare for the working world? Should they offer research? And what's the significance of one and the other? How do teaching and researching impact on each other? I believe we have to ask ourselves these questions urgently, but no matter what exactly our answer is to these questions, we need a radical mindset shift and we need an infrastructure push. And we need it now. Because I imagine universities and higher education as the future engines of our societies, not as the places lagging behind, as critical places of our societies setting the tone. Let's fast forward again to 2035. No one needs to go to a place anymore to learn, research, teach, or study. Learners organize themselves in digital networks and communities. And if we're honest, to a large extent, that is already happening today. I learned and worked a lot from my vegetable pitch and from under the hazelnut tree this summer. And we're experiencing exactly this also here today in this global hackathon, with ambitious people joining from all over the world, finding innovative solutions. And in the future, we will see even more flexibility here. Year-long degrees don't exist anymore. There will be short courses, nano degrees, micro degrees, and all that transdisciplinary and intergenerational. Universities, they might still exist, but only if they offer prime digital infrastructure for people of different generations and different backgrounds to meet, reflect, research, and think critically about important topics. And not only technology plays a role there, but also things like history, ethics, humanities, and the arts. And all that cross-cultural, cross-country, and cross-disciplinary. Now, campuses, they might also still exist, but only if they are showcasing our societal transformation. They aren't concrete jungles anymore, but they're characterized by biodiversity, renewable energy, vertical gardening, and again, prime digital infrastructure. Companies, they might offer projects for the learners, but more importantly, their employees keep a lifelong relationship with the campus. They are passionate about learning. They love to return, to exchange, and to act as mentors and to our mentees. Because our view of the teacher-learner relationship will have also entirely changed in a few years. And it's marked by collaboration. And I know that so many of us are living exactly this already today. And if you look at these images, you see that the future, to such a large extent, is already here. There are so many great people, projects, ideas, and you guys out there working exactly on this. And that gives me hope. And speaking of hope, let's look at Farida. What is she doing in 2035? How is she using the university system? In 2035, Farida regularly exchanges on projects and topics with students via the virtual campus. She gives input for research and she updates her own skills. The university is an analog and a digital place that fosters future mindsets. We can't foresee the future, but we have to shape it. And to a large extent, we realize that the future is already here. So let's push these topics, let's push these ideas, and let's work to get them on together. Because we have to disrupt ourselves or we will be disrupted. And that's why I'm so excited that we are here in this forum and that we will now discuss the next steps together, also in this panel, to see how we can take steps forward to redefine learning for the future.